and move as we go through this to make sure that we get everything. And then I'll go back through and answer questions to make sure that you guys do understand everything. It makes sense. We're all on the same page, okay?
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, I am super excited. I'm going to mute everybody really, by the way, just so that no interruptions and we can get through this quicker. Oh, by the way, I will say use the chat box as we go through this as well. If you forget, that's where I'd like you to write down your questions so that once we finish, we can go back through and I can answer everything rapid fire. That way you don't forget anything either. Okay. What do I need to do? Last thing, participants. Let's mute everybody. Okay. So I wanted to first start off and say, good morning, welcome. I'm so excited. And by the way, I want to commend all of you, for getting up early this morning to better yourself, and that makes a big difference. And right now, in the situation that we're in, I'll tell you that it's the people who do things that others won't. They're going to start creating things that others won't have. It's in these times of uncertainty that successful people, they rise up. New businesses are going to blow up. New millionaires are going to be created so fast in this next couple, I'd say even a couple weeks to years after this, once everything falls over and gets kind of smoothed out. That's kind of how it works in business and in the world. Like when bad things, quote unquote, happen, and I'm not saying this isn't bad by any means, but that's where innovation comes. And that's why this virtual program is going to be so freaking beneficial. And it's important to get so good at it, because what it takes to be good at a virtual demonstration is the same skills it takes to be good or great in an in-person presentation. There's no difference between those skill sets. It's just really a mindset shift. And what's really unique right now, the shift that I want you all to kind of think about, is the fact that nobody can go to any restaurant, any store, like they're literally shut down. Everything has to be shipped online, unless you walk to a grocery store and pick stuff up, or go to the food, the restaurants and get stuff delivered or picked up. So everything is going to be done online, and we don't know how long for, right? But more importantly, what this is going to do is it's going to add another layer of your business that is going to literally allow you to work from, like, you can work in Mexico and do appointments back home and not lose your schedule, still travel, all this kind of stuff. So a lot of opportunity. So I want to ask you a question, and I'll unmute everybody for this question. Actually, type it in the chat box. So there's 3 parts to communication. Does anybody know what those 3 parts are? Winner for who answers the right. Okay, listening is definitely important. Orlando, that's exactly right. Body language. Anything else? Listening to understand. You definitely want to make sure you're understanding where they're coming from. Okay. Orlando, facial expressions, what do we call that? We call that body language, right? 100% true. And then, Brody, you're right as well. Smiling on the phone, what we call that, because that creates a tone. Okay. So there's 3 parts to communication. There's 3 parts to communication. You want to write these down. The first one are the words that you use to communicate, right? Without words, it's kind of hard to communicate. Now, the key word is kinda. Okay. Then we have tone of voice. And the third one is body language. Now, out of those 3 things, what do you think is the most important in communication? What has the most impact in accurately communicating with somebody?
Body language.
Yeah.
100% right. Body language. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean tone's not important? Does it mean words are not important? Not at all. Okay. So here's what I want you to write down. So next to words, the words we speak, that is 7% of the communication. 7% of the communication is through words. 38% of communication is done through tone of voice. And then 55% of communication is done through body language. Now, I want to preface with something. A lot of people, when I teach this, they say, well, what do you mean? So if the words are only 7%, does that mean the words are not important? And that's actually not the case at all. What it means is the words are actually very important, because if you use the wrong words, more than 93% of the communication is done through your nonverbals. So if you're using the wrong words, your nonverbals won't make sense and they won't accurately convey the message you're saying. All right. What does that mean with us? It means that's why the script is so important, because that conveys the facts, the information someone needs. Now, on our virtual demonstrations, it's even more imperative that we have our body language and our facial expressions and our tones. Okay. And what I hear a lot with people when I'm coaching on virtuals is, well, Spencer, I'm just more comfortable in person. They can feel they see me smile more. I'm more engaged, and that's probably true, because when you do a virtual, most people have a mindset shift that it's different and they act different. But there is no difference between a face-to-face and a in person. As far as the tone we use, the body language, it's even more important to sit up straight. It's even more important to smile. It's even more important to make sure that you are, there you go, nice job, Orlando. It's even more important that you are really giving energy, okay? Because your tone of voice creates the energy. Your smile, even when you don't even realize it, but did you all hear my tone change just by smiling? Okay, that has a big impact with your customers, because what it tells them is that you're enjoying what you're doing, you like the product, that you're excited to meet them. Okay, so you got to make sure that you are bringing the energy. And here's the rule of thumb: whatever energy you bring to your customer, they're going to be 3 to 4 notches lower on the energy they bring. So what does this mean? If you don't come with a level 10 energy, let's say you come with like a 6 or a 7, you're like, I'm doing really good. But you come and your energy is just kind of like, yeah, Mrs. Jones, it's Cutco, it's okay. If you're at a 7, your customer is at like a 3. Do you think they're going to be excited about something if they're only at a 3 on a level of 10? Not as much. It's going to be a lot harder. Okay. So tone and energy and body language are going to be so crucial as we go through this. Okay. Now I'm going to dive into, now I'm going to ask, does anyone have any questions? I unmuted all of you. Does anyone have any questions about what we just went over?
Well, no, not what you just went over.
Okay. Cyan, I don't know if you heard me. I'm going to stop and pause for questions. And if there's anything that's not in this section, we'll cover it at the very, very end. Okay.
Okay.
And you can just put any other questions you have in the chat box as I'm going through, so that we can be up to date. We don't miss anything. And that way I can answer all of your questions. Cool.
Okay. Cool.
Perfect. All right. So now what we're going to do is we are going to dive into some key points that I think are very, very crucial in the virtual demo. Okay. So the first thing that I want to start with is your goals and your mindset. Okay. So when it comes to goals and tying into your story, we're going to dive more into this tomorrow, as far as your personal story, why you're working for Cutco. I would put a note right now in your paper to be working on that and really perfecting that. your About Me page. And if you don't know what an About Me page is, I'll post that in the group, a couple of them here today. An About Me page is basically talking about what you're doing, why you're doing it, more importantly, the specifics you're going to gain from working with Cutco, and plan and kind of creating a story and a vision for it. Okay. Again, I'll go in more details, or actually Ashton will be going into more details about this tomorrow. But I'll tell you, the more you talk about not just you and brag about yourself, but where you're going and why you're working here and what it's going to do for you, the more your customers are going to listen. Now, I messed up on this part, by the way. Before this even starts, we're supposed to do one particular thing. And what is that one thing that we need to be doing with every single customer before we dive into anything about ourselves? Can anyone answer that question? You're all in.
Bill report.
Build rapport. Okay. Build rapport. What does that mean? That means that we're spending no less than 10 minutes asking questions about them. Okay. Asking questions about them. What kind of questions are we going to ask? We're going to ask questions like about their family. You know, what hobbies, what do they do for fun? Do they travel a lot? Do they, are their kids in any sports? Do they play any instruments? Are they in any clubs or organizations? And the big purpose about these questions is, one, mom's favorite person to talk about other than herself is her kids. Okay. And we want to break down that wall, that barrier, and create a connection. When you're curious about your customer, they become curious about you. And I know a couple of you on here have been doing a lot of virtuals. You might have had a point where your customer didn't seem engaged. They kind of just get the uh-huhs and uh-hums, and you could tell they weren't really paying attention. And that has a lot to do with how you build rapport in the very beginning, how you become curious about your customers. All right. So the most important thing with this is being curious about them, getting to know them, understanding what they do, and what you can't service people unless you know them. And people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So when you spend 10 to 15 minutes getting to know them, you're going to build trust. And people like purchasing things from friends rather than random salespeople. Okay. So the purpose of your rapport is to create a friendship with your customer. Okay. And then once you build that relationship, you want to say, here is a big line. So after you do your rapport with them, and you talk about your goals, then you're gonna, this line I learned from one of the guys in corporate actually just recently. I love it. It's, now Mrs. Jones, I'm blanking on it right now. I'll have to get it to you in a second. I'm completely blanked on it. But it's, crap. Anyway, we'll move to the 3 keys to success in your virtuals. Okay, so there's 3 keys. And I'll
Is it
throw.
something like when
No, it's
so
nothing
that's
you've
what I-
heard.
Okay.
It's completely different. I have never taught it, so I can. Yeah, thanks, Cyan. I love the attempt. So there's 3 keys to your success in your virtual. The first one is enthusiasm. And the one thing I want to say, the easiest way to create enthusiasm is, there's a saying, enthusiasm, the last 4 letters are IASM. IASM. And what they say is, I am sold myself. What does that mean? If you believe in something, you like something, you typically have more energy and excitement towards that. Okay. And the big thing is, if you, and I don't know about you, but I never wanted to be a salesperson. Meaning someone who's not like, oh, you're crafty with your words, you got me to buy something I didn't want. That's not what I wanted to be ever. And what I found is, to be when you're excited about something and you have enthusiasm about it, that naturally is conveyed to your customer. I think about a new restaurant or a new, perfect example is you could take the situation we're in right now, the pandemic here, and people are so, and I wouldn't say in a positive way, they're enthusiastic about protecting people, right? And they talk about it, they're like, oh my gosh, have you seen this? And there's energy and you feel it. That's enthusiasm. Okay. And how do you convey that? Your facial expressions, your tone of voice. Okay. So make sure that you're creating some enthusiasm. All right. The second thing to do with this, to understand where your enthusiasm is I highly recommend all of you for at least recording certain areas of your demonstration, your rapport building, your close, and your recommendations for sure. Record that and watch it and see, oh, am I very excited? Do I sound like someone who loves this product? Do I sound like someone who people would want to spend 45 minutes to an hour of their time with? Right? So you want to change your tone. You want to have fluctuations. Now, an easy way to use enthusiasm is to add personal stories. What do I mean by this? Personal experiences you've had or other people you know have had while using the product line. Okay. Another thing I say is during recommendations, if you record yourself, or if you're not averaging, 20 or 30 per appointment, I would ask yourself, would you give recommendations to yourself? Would you buy from yourself? Do you sound like you're excited about that set or that option or that individual piece? All right, the second key is keeping in control. You need to keep in control of your virtual appointment. How do you do this? The biggest key is you want to set the expectation from the very beginning. How do you set the expectation? Mrs. Jones, as we're going to go through this, it's going to be kind of interactive. And I'm going to tell you when to click to go to the next page, so we're both on the same page together. So I'll just tell you to click when we're going to move to the next one. And that way you're literally setting the ground rule from the very beginning of Mrs. Jones, I'm in control of this. I'm going to keep the flow of how we're going to work. Now, how do you make sure this happens? You need to ask a lot of questions while you're going through your virtual. What do I mean? So let's say that you're on the junk knife page, okay? And the first thing I do before I start is, hey, Mrs. Jones, do you see the wooden knives? Do you see the picture of all the knives? What this tells them is I know what page they should be on. And as I'm going through this, and let's say I'm going through the junk knives, I'm like, oh, Mrs. Jones, do you see the wood-handled knife? Yeah. So wood handles, they're attractive when they're new. They're extremely unsanitary. They absorb liquids, bacteria, grease, germs, and retain odors. In several states, restaurants don't use wooden handles because of the sanitation concerns. Okay. So I like to ask a question before I dive into that section so they know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. And then more questions throughout the whole entire thing. So anywhere I can ask a question that I want some feedback. So it's like, have you ever had an experience, Mrs. Jones, where you've had, or here's another one I love. Mrs. Jones, do you have, how many drawers of knives do you have? Does your drawer look like this? Joking around, having fun on your virtuals is actually really important. And I always make a joke. I'm like, Mrs. Jones, does this picture look familiar to you? They're like, oh my God, that's my junk drawer in my kitchen. I'm like, yeah, I know, I snuck in. Don't worry, I cleaned my hands and everything before I came in, but I took a picture before our appointment. Just a funny little joke. Have fun on your virtuals. So, and by the way, the more questions you ask, the more involved they are. The more involved they are, the more fun they're going to have. If you're just simply talking at them for 45 minutes and they're not involved in the process, they're going to get bored. Does anyone know what the average attention span for a human being is right now?
Three minutes?
Good guess. Orlando, you're closer. It's actually less than 10 seconds. Yep, it's about 8. It's less than 10 seconds. What does that mean? If you're not asking questions, you're not keeping them involved, they're going to put you on speaker and they're going to walk away and they're going to do the uh-huhs and uh-hums. Oh, yeah. Yep. Oh, okay. And it's going to be all based on, you might have had a conversation like that before with a friend, or you're talking to someone you can tell they're really not paying attention to you. Asking questions will get them back involved. Maybe you've even asked a question where you asked it and the customer didn't even answer it. I know I've been there before. Big tip, repeat that question. Because what you just showed them and what you're doing basically is you're calling them out for not listening without being a jerk about it. Okay, you can't be like, Brody, you didn't answer my question. You have to just repeat that question. All right, so that will pull them back into the engagement. By the way, when you call a parent out for not doing something, do you think they straighten up a little bit more? Heck yeah, they do. They're like, oh my gosh, I just got called out. Cheyenne called me out for not paying attention. I got to pay attention the rest of this appointment now. Okay, so make sure that you're asking questions. So when I get to the point of like the knives, it's like, Mrs. Jones, what would you use this for? Now, here's a big key, guys. It's really, really important to ask those questions, what they would use that knife for. Okay. One of the reasons why, has anyone ever had a customer adamant about a paring knife? Maybe some of you. Okay. And typically it's someone, they use the paring knife for everything. Why? Because they don't know how to use the knives. Okay. Most people know the concept of cutting. They understand that I take my knife, I go back and forth, and it cuts what I'm supposed to cut. They don't know what the knives are used for, right? They're not knife professionals. Most of our customers are not chefs. So they're using the methodology is if it cuts, it works for me. So we need to know what they think they would use it for so that we can actually suggest the right pieces for them. So every piece I'm going to say, oh, Mrs. Jones, and so I'm going through the videos. Oh, did you see that? Look at that. It just glides right through it. You want to be the hype man, right? Get excited. And then ask them, now, what would you use this for? And let's say they're talking about a paring knife. They're like, oh, I use this to cut my vegetables. Oh, awesome. How often do you cut vegetables, Mrs. Jones? Oh, like every day. Okay, nice. And do you do stews and you kind of ask some questions about what they cook? And as I go through it, let's say if I'm going to start suggesting, so when they tell me, if I'm at the paring knife, they tell me they're using it for vegetables. And when I get to the chef's knife, I'm going to be like, by the way, Mrs. Jones, this is actually the best knife to chop veggies with. And it go yada, yada. And I go into it. This is the knife you're going to use for your vegetables. This is the knife you're going to use. And I use that line. This is the knife you'll use for blank. This is the knife you'll use for blank. So I'm telling them what they're going to use those pieces for, because you are the knife expert. You went through training. You continually go through training to get better at it. Your customer's never done it. Okay. So just remember, ask lots of questions. You're not being rude by asking questions. You're not being inconsiderate. I remember when I was younger, starting this position, I was 17 and I was talking to people in their 30s and 40s and 50s. And, growing up, I was taught never to talk back, really. And if someone says something, you don't question what they said, or that's talking back, right? My mother hated that. And so from what I learned going through this process is to ask questions is to clarify. All right. You should never assume anything. And if a customer gives you an answer, I always repeat their answer in a question. So Joe, just to make sure I understand that right, you said you don't like the homemaker set, okay? And you said it was too many pieces, is that right? Awesome, I completely understand. At first 10 pieces seems like a lot. What a lot of our customers do is they try out the whole set. If there's a piece or a couple pieces you don't like, you just send it back for a full refund, no questions asked. Okay, so you want to be asking questions and clarifying things. if you assume and you don't clarify, you're actually not servicing your customer. I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with a friend where, or even just specifically text message where you said one thing and your friend thought you were mad at you or mad at them. And you're like, dude, I wasn't mad at all. I didn't, right? And that's why I'm saying, words are important, but the tone and the body language add another layer to really take it to the next level. All right. And the third and final key to success on your virtual is follow the manual. Right? You all know this, follow the manual. It is designed to make your life so much easier. It also is designed to keep you on time. Okay. The whole manual is divvied up to positions. Hey buddy, 1 second. So don't forget that that manual makes your life so much easier. Sorry, little guy is just woke up. I need to get some help. Okay. Oh, so by the way, the line that you want to add once you transition from talking about yourself into doing into the presentation is, by the way, Mr. Jones, I know this might not mean much to you, but thank you so much for taking the time to see me. This appointment it really means a lot. Thank you very much. It's like, you want to say thank you so much for seeing my presentation. I know this appointment doesn't mean much to you, but it means the world to me, because every my goal is to do 10 appointments a week to keep me on track for my scholarship. And you being here is a huge help. Thank you so much.
Can you repeat that?
Yes. You start with thank you so much, Mrs. Jones, for taking the time to see me. Hey, buddy. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you so much for taking the time to see me. I know this appointment doesn't mean much to you, but it means the world to me. All right. Sorry. So did you get that, Brody? Cool. So that line, I'm gonna say before we jump into the actual presentation, once you go through your contest that you're in, the skills you're going through, the scholarship, all that stuff, then when transitioning to the demo, that's where I put that line of thanking them again. You can never underthank somebody. That is probably the biggest thing I can tell you right now. You can never underthank them. Hi, buddy. You can never underthank them, okay? So what does that mean? Thank them to the moon and back, because the more, are you waving? Yeah, hi. The more you thank them, the more they appreciate what you're doing. Secondly, the more they'll invest in listening into you, okay? People will give more of your time when you appreciate them giving your time or giving their time, okay? So overthank them. You will never have a problem there, okay? All right, so I'm gonna pause real quick for questions. Any questions about any of that right there?
You said a couple of sections ago to write down something for write down the sharing goals for tomorrow. What if we're not going to be at that workshop tomorrow?
It doesn't matter. So good question, Brody. You want to start working on this regardless. This is one of the most important things with your presentation is selling yourself. Okay. And that's what this portion is you selling yourself on why they should listen to you, why you're working, and helping. It's okay for now. I'm in the middle. My mother? Oh, it's like, why would my mother call?
She likes me.
All right. So overall question, are virtuals supposed to be done over Zoom? No, they don't need to be by any means. Great question, Cyan. I prefer to do them over the phone like a normal conversation. Okay. Now, if you have Zoom, you can. Are you waving? You can, but here's the deal. Zoom only has about 30 minutes if you don't pay for it. So I
Okay.
pay for Zoom. Now it's only 15 or 16 bucks a month. It's not too crazy. And what's really why, so if you want to, I wouldn't say no. I'm going to say it's not a necessary investment though.
Okay.
Okay. Now, as you get better with this and you want to, for sure, because what I can do is I give them the Zoom link. I share my screen. I control everything, right? That's
Right.
pretty cool. Now, the downside to that is I don't know what they're doing. I don't even know if they're paying attention because now I'm in control of everything.
Mhm.
Right? So there's pros and cons to it. So I'll say right now, it's not necessary because it'll actually help you perfect your skill sets,
Right.
right? As far as your nonverbal communication. So good question. Any other questions before we move on? No? Okay. So showing cookware, yeah, we'll get there. Orlando, you know it. The cookware sells itself on the virtual. As long as you go through the presentation, show them everything, it's all there. But that's a good question. We can talk a little bit. That's a little bit more advanced. Not something we're going to cover right now. I want to give some basic tips to really make sure you guys maximize. All right, so we're going to dive into following or actually, let's do some tone stuff real quick. So when you are, how do we really maximize our tone? Tone is the most important element of your virtual. Yeah. See, even Benjamin knows that. Customers only buy if they feel comfortable and only because you made them feel comfortable. Okay. So since they're not holding the knives, you want to get excited about them. All right. Create that through body language, through smiling. Okay. By the way, don't talk to your customers like you're always talk to mom or anybody else on the phone. What do I mean by that? When you talk to your mom, you answer, "What do you want?" Right? That's not how you want to talk to a customer on the phone. All right? You want to always have a loud, a positive energy and excitement. You just want to, do you want to teach? Is that what's happening here? Yeah. Okay. Don't slouch on your presentations. I would not do my presentation on my bed. I'd be doing my presentation on a chair where I can have a flat surface for my computer. I have a flat surface for my manual. I also can take notes during my presentation on things that they like, things that they do for cooking, because sometimes I'm not going to remember all that. So when I'm going through my presentation, I literally take notes on the stuff that they like, on the stuff that's important to them. So when I get to the end, let's say they don't want to buy a set, I can suggest, or even while I'm going through the sets, I can suggest things that would be best for them based off of what they told me. So taking good notes is so, so important. All right, so now that we've gone a little bit through tone, let's dive in a little bit more on the manual because there's a couple things that I want to add just specifically for the virtual. So I'm sure you all know on page 1, when you ask them to get out their knives, we still want them to get out their knives. Okay. 100% on a virtual, they still get out their knives just like they would in person because they still need to check and see what they have. By the way, big tip, have them send you a picture of their knives. Okay. You want to become a knife expert. Because if you know more about what they have, you can actually talk specifically about the problems. What do I mean? If you don't know they have wood-handled knives, you can't spend the most time on the most important part. Let's say they have wood handle and you're like, "Oh my gosh, plastic handles are terrible." They're like, "Yeah, that's why I don't have any." And now you're not actually adding any value because you don't know what they have or what they do. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah. Okay. So on top of that, on that section where they're getting out their knives, I'm also going to say, can you get a pen and paper as well? I want them to have pen and paper so that they can write things down as we go through it. Okay. All right, so if you have, and I tell them, by the way, just pull out, as we're going through this section, Mr. Jones, I just want you to kind of look and see how your knives compare. Okay, kind of what you have. Hey. Hey, what's up, buddy? Oh, okay. We're struggling here. We're on the struggle bus. No, it's okay. Mom's on a call. Okay. Okay, buddy. Can we finish this? Okay. So when we get to now we're on the sorry. So now we're on the customer test. So we're at the part where the video plays on the Forever Guarantee. At the very bottom where it says you can't beat American Made and Forever Guaranteed, you're going to add in this line. Thank you. So here's a quick video to show you what our customers think about our product, about their product. So that's at the bottom of page 5. And you're only going to add this for the virtual because unless you're playing the virtual in person, which is totally fine. So you're going to say, here's a quick video to show what our customers think about their Cutco. After the video plays, I finish with this line. See how these customers have had their products for decades? You see how those customers have had their Cutco for decades? It just goes to show how amazing our guarantee is. It just goes to show how amazing our guarantee is.
Could you repeat the second part again?
Yeah, so I start with how you see how those customers have had their Cutco for decades. You see how those customers have had their Cutco for decades. It just goes to show how amazing our guarantee is. You can literally pass down your Cutco to, you can literally pass down your Cutco to, and put in parentheses, name drop their kids. So you can literally pass it down to Benjamin and your future grandkids, and it's one of the only few things that you can keep in the family forever. Smile. You can literally pass it down. You can literally pass down your Cutco to name drop their kids and your future grandkids, and it's one of the few things that you can keep in your family forever and use every day. Okay, everyone get that? Perfect. Thanks, Brody. All right. And then as far as the only other addition that I put in the manual, by the way, is the Oh, is the part at the the selecting the best option. So once you start talking about the Wusthof and Shun, before you jump into that, I'm gonna say, hey, hey Orlando, do you have that pen and paper handy? Awesome. You're gonna want to go ahead and grab that out right now, okay? We're gonna need that for this section. Okay, so as I go through that, I'm gonna go through it like normal, right? Most people haven't had the opportunity to price find cutlery. It's like anything else. There's a wide variety of quality and prices. Okay, Cutco's top rated, so we only compare to the highest quality brands. We have a price comparison for a set of cutlery similar to Cutco. It's called Wusthof and Shun. Have you heard of them before? So we're gonna go through that whole section. Okay. Then at the bottom, when you get to the part where you're gonna say, once we first kind of present a price. Now, Brody, I know you haven't had a chance to use it much, your Cutco much yet, but just considering the guarantee and unique features, most people, even people like Orlando, will tell you that it's 10 times better than any knives they've ever used. By the way, Cluck, name drop people you know who have Cutco. That person knows when you're doing anything throughout this section. Okay. It's 10 times better than any knives they've ever used. Just considering the guarantee and unique feature, most people would agree it's at least twice as good as Wusthof. So when something offers twice the quality and value and lasts twice as long, you expect it to be at least twice the price, right? Yeah. And at twice the price, you're talking over $4,000 for your set of Cutco. Let me show you what you get for that. Now, once I finish that line, I'm going to say, hey, Christina, go ahead and write. So on that top of the paper, write 4,000. Okay. And I'm literally going to tell them bit by bit how to write it down. So then I get over to the next page and I'm going to talk about, our homemaker sets are most popular. It's perfect for families that cook 2 to 4 times per week. Has the 10 basic tools I explained earlier, 8 table knives, the sharpener of the straight edges, and a block to store it all in. And we also have our table knives. If you're considering a set of Cutco, would you prefer the set with the table knives? Oh, great choice. By the way, I get fired up when they say, I'm like, oh, great choice. Anything they pick, get fired up for them. Oh, Orlando, that's a good choice right there. A lot of our customers like that. Oh, that's my favorite too, by the way. Good choice. Like compliment them as they make decisions. Make sure you know that they're listening, or make sure they know you're listening. Okay. So now that we've gone through that, well, the great thing is it doesn't cost $4,000. So Brody, go ahead and cross 4,000 out. All right. Now just below that. Okay. In fact, it doesn't even cost as much as Wusthof at $3,435. So just below 4,000, right? 3,435. Okay, cool. Now cross that out. All right. The Homemaker plus 8 set is only $1,326 paid in full, and that includes shipping. Now, most of our customers take advantage of our easy pay option, which is 100% refundable security deposit. Okay. So go ahead and, all right. So 100% refundable security deposit, which is only $290 today, and that includes tax. So Brody, what I want you to do is under the 3435 you crossed out, write 1326. Okay. And then draw an arrow to the right, and just to the right of that, I want you to write 290. And above the two, and circle it. And then above the 290, write 100% refundable security deposit, try for 3 weeks. And I'm literally going to walk them through it just like I would do it on my paper to make sure that they can read it and understand it. Remember, a confused mind will never buy. A confused mind will never buy. So if you don't get detailed with your description on for them how to write it down, they're not going to be able to look at it and understand what just happened. Okay. All right. Are you guys getting some good stuff here? Cool. All right. So as you get to the storage options, on page 7, where in the virtual, they have a quick spot where they talk about the signature and the complete set. Here's how I talk about it really quick. So when I go into the signature, especially knives, you'll notice that the 4 most popular tools I showed you that come in the signature set and the complete set are listed here. So that's the part where you get to the storage options, and then to the left, there's a place to click that moves over to the signature set and the complete set. And this is how you show it to them, okay? They're listed here, as well as some of our more gourmet tools. So you're gonna walk through those in the accessories, okay? All right, and then as far as closing goes, there's no difference. Now, the one thing I will say is there's a couple things I'm gonna talk about closing really quick. In your virtual, when you're closing, you ask for the order and you don't say another word, okay? If you say, Mrs. Jones, is that something you wanna get today? By the way, you still smile and nod. It's so important for your smile and nod, okay? But if you say anything before they do, you became a salesperson and you're pushing something into them because they have not answered your question yet. And they also might take that as lack of confidence in you in what you do, meaning you don't believe the product is worth it if you're trying to push and sell them after you ask them if they want to buy it. Okay, so I'm completely quiet until they say something to me. The other thing I want to mention is I've heard this from some people in the past. They say, hey, is that something you want to get today? Or is that a little too much? Yeah, I know, Brody. I think the same thing when someone says it. I'm like, no. Actually, by the way, I heard someone say that the other day. They called in and we gave them this really great deal on a signature set. And the person was like, oh, so we have this special going on, yada, yada. Is that something you want to get today or is that a little too much for you? And he lost the signature set sale because he basically told the customer not to get it and asking that question. Okay, so make sure that you don't put anything in their head. You ask for the order and you don't say another word. Okay, if it's too much, what do you think the customer is going to say? They're going to tell you it's too much, right? You don't need to say anything about it. They will tell you how they feel. Okay, so don't say anything until they say something to you. And by the way, they're going to say they'll say a bunch of different stuff. They'll have what's called verbal diarrhea. They'll say all kinds of things that are in the top of their head. None of them are the actual problem until it's the last thing that comes out of their mouth. The only thing that is the real issue is the last one they say. Okay. You probably had it where someone's like, oh, I don't know, this happened and we have Corona right now and all yada yada. Right? Like none of that really matters. They say the Corona, great, they're not going anywhere. They're literally not spending any extra money because they are cooking at home. No one wants to get that stuff. Right? So they're spending more money for the home right now. Why? Because they're spending every hour of every day there. They don't go anywhere. Okay. So don't say anything until they actually say, you know what, it's too much. And then you follow back up with, just to make sure I understand, like and here's why I clarify, right? It's not that they're saying no to Cutco. I'm clarifying what their issue is with what I just showed them, right? If they say the price is the issue, did they say Cutco is an issue? Did they say they didn't like Cutco? They didn't say anything negative about the product at all. All they said is that's a little too much for my budget. Okay. What that means is we just need to find something that's better fit for them. And that's why it's so important, by the way, as you're going through your virtuals, you have to get more excited as you're dropping down, or keep that consistency all the way through. As excited as you are at the homemaker, you have to be that same excited about the galley set, and that excited about the studio set and the starter sets. And if those don't matter, you have to be that excited about building their custom list. By the way, Cheyenne, I completely understand, a lot of our customers are like you, where they like the product line, but they like to kind of mix and match and make their own little things. So let's talk about how we customize our own sets. And you give them permission, and you get them excited about customizing their own set. People like to follow others. Okay, what do I mean by that? You've all been on a tollway before, and you have like 10 different toll booths open, and there's one line that has like 50 cars in it. And then the other toll booths have like 4 or 5 cars. And you're like, what's wrong with the other toll booths? The answer is nothing. People just follow what other people do. So as you're going through this, you want to mention, oh, that's what a lot of our customers do. A lot of our customers like that color. Give them reassurance that they're not the only person that does X, Y, or Z. Everything they choose, I'm going to tell you right now, there's been somebody else who made that decision or made that choice. So you want to help them feel comfortable in the decisions they make. All right, so you want to make sure that you're keeping the same, if not more, excitement as you're dropping down, because we know that not everybody is going to spend $1,000 the first time. Okay, not everybody does. Could they, at least on the payment plan? For sure. But again, everyone's got a number they're comfortable with. Everyone has a cooking style they're comfortable with. And our job is to figure that out and show it to them and find what's best for them. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick second to pause here. I'm going to open it up for questions, and then we'll go into recommendations. So does anyone have any questions?
Oh, I remember someone asking me this a couple of days ago, and it stuck with me. With virtual demos, would it be better to do it with FaceTime or just a regular call?
I don't think there's any necessity to have FaceTime, because with FaceTime, what happens is, what are they looking at?
Yeah.
They're looking at us.
They're looking at you, right? And what do we want them looking at, Brody?
The presentation.
The presentation, the product, right? And no offense to any of you, to myself included, I don't care how good looking you are. If you're really that good looking, are they focused on the presentation?
No.
Not at all, right? They're looking at you. They're like, oh, he's so dreamy, or she's so gorgeous, right? So it really just distracts them from what the purpose of the presentation is, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
So great question. Yeah, so you're asking about the 100% refundable?
Yes.
So you're just gonna, it's just like your normal presentation. You have them right at above the 290, right? 100% refundable. And then I transition to the buy now bonus. By the way, Mrs. Jones, by the way, Cyan, we actually have a special where when you get and here's how I say it, when you get your homemaker set today, I can actually throw in, here's my actual line. When you buy your homemaker set today, you get your homemaker set today, I'll actually buy you an entertainer pack, kitchen tool set, or super shears. By the way, if you don't write that down, you're missing a super money line. What I'm telling them is I'm going to purchase something for them when they make a purchase.
Could you repeat the line?
Yeah. So it's no, I blinked, Brody.
Okay.
No, you're good. So it was so Mrs. Jones, when you purchase your homemaker today, I will buy you a matching kitchen tool set, entertainer pack, or super shears with your order. Which one did you like? So when you purchase your homemaker set today, I will actually buy you a matching matching kitchen tool set, entertainer pack, or super shears. Which one did you like the best? Okay. And then I finished with Brody. So I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you. Do you want to try out the Homemaker set today and get your super shears for free?
Yeah. So you always smile or nod?
Always. Every time I ask for the order, I smile and nod, no matter what. Because that smile and nod conveys confidence and expectation for whatever set that I'm looking at that point. Okay. So yeah, every time I'm asking for, even when I'm doing customized sets, I'm still going to smile and nod. Okay.
All right.
Great question. Anything else on this area? No? All right. Let's finish with recommendations, and then we'll open up to some more Q&A on a broad spectrum and see if I can help with anything else. All right. So as far as recommendations go, we know the only way to always maximize your recommendations is to have page 16 memorized word for word. Okay. Now, word for word is just the first step in this process. Okay. The second step is your expectation. What do you expect to get as far as recommendations go? How many do you expect? So I'll tell you right now, I know that, you know, Brody and Orlando have two different expectations as far as recommendations go. What do I mean by that? Most newer people focus is, I want to get a sponsor every time, which is exactly where you want to be. Once you've gotten good at this, I'll tell you right now, Orlando is mad if he only gets 10 recommendations. Right? Orlando I have to get 20 to 30 or I didn't do a good demo. So his expectation therefore creates his reality. And that's why he has one of the highest referral rates in the office. I think he is number one. He averages the most per appointments that he does because he has an expectation. Like, he has fun with it, by the way. He's like, oh, Mrs. Jones, what do you mean you only know 10 people? Come on. And he jokes with them. He has fun with them. So I'm going to go through some couple tips to really maximize your in-person. And this is also going to maximize, obviously, your virtuals as well, okay? So on virtual specifically, actually, but for both of them, you'd want to do your rec approach before you write up the order. Do your rec approach before you write up the order. Here's why. She thinks that the demo is done as soon as you get her credit card number. She thinks the demo is done as soon as you get her credit card number. So you want to make sure she has something to work on. Then she knows it's not done if she's working on recs while you're finishing the order. Okay. It'll also give her more time to think of other people. If you're busy working, she has more time to think. But if you're not working on anything, she's like, oh, we're done. Okay. So make sure that you do that before you start writing up orders. All right, so obviously following the approach word for word, getting it memorized. Remember, by the way, in referrals, your tonality and your excitement has a big impact on how many referrals you get. Like, I get so, and I'll tell you, I'm sure Orlando, I haven't seen him do it, but I know he gets excited because he's always showing me his referral book. But you have to get excited about doing the referrals. So it's like, Cheyenne, thank you so much. By the way, how did you see my presentation? Or what did you think about my presentation? Awesome. Thank you so much, by the way. Now, there's one more very important part. Here's actually where you can really help me out. I get credit every time I show Cutco, but I can only show it to people that I've been personally recommended to. So what I need you to do while I'm finished putting in this order here, cleaning up some stuff and getting prepared to finish it, you're done here. I just want you to jot down 200 to 300 people that you could think of who might be nice enough to listen to my presentation. I'm not looking for people to buy, just nice people like you willing to take a look. You got to get excited about your referral approach. If you're not excited, your customer's not going to be excited because they're like, oh, he's just going through the motions. This isn't, oh, those referrals, they're not that important. Here's a couple. So your energy and your excitement has a big impact on how many referrals you get. Okay. Never end on a question. Assume the sale at the end of the rec approach. So here's how I do it for the virtual specifically. So who are a couple people off the top of your head that might be nice enough to help me out? So who are a couple people off the top of your head that might be nice enough to help me out? The reason I use this line, by the way, is because I just want to get the pen moving. I want them to be writing. Once I get it started, it's a lot easier to keep it moving. Okay. Now, once I ask that question, I follow up with this. We can start with the names, then come back to numbers. We can start with names and then come back for numbers. Thank you so much, Mrs. Jones. I really appreciate your help. On a virtual, I always want to start with them getting names first. Okay, so the other thing with your virtual is you want to say, I actually have a pen and paper right here. So go ahead and start. I'm ready when you are. I have a pen and paper right here. I'm ready when you are. And then I fill out my rec sheet while I'm talking to them. And I want to write them down. Don't let them get off the phone without recommendations. If anyone ever says, I can't think of anybody, I don't know anyone, what do we know that they're saying?
They don't like you.
They're not comfortable.
They don't
They're not comfortable,
know.
they don't like you.
They're trying to think of people who they think will buy.
Ding, 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 Brody, you're the winner on the most important one, is they're only focused on people that think would buy. Now, you're Orlando and Cyan, you're both right. If they don't like you, they're not going to want to recommend their friends to you. Okay, that's why it's so important to spend 15 to 20 minutes getting to know them and talking about you in the very beginning. Okay, that's the most important part of your presentation because it sets up the rest of the presentation. Okay, so 100% right. So when they say, I don't know anybody, you want to remind them, Mrs. Jones, again, I'm not looking for people who you think are going to buy, just nice people who might be willing to take a look. Right? Not looking for people who you think would buy, just nice people like you willing to take a look. And they'll give you a couple people. Okay. Now, what's going to be very, very important is that you start asking, you want to coach them through recommendations, just like we did in the beginning with you guys as you got started. Coach them through it, meaning I want to ask questions. You want to have 5 to 7 thought joggers throughout your presentation, throughout your rec part. What do I mean by that? Hey, hey, Christina, who do you know that likes to hunt or fish? Oh, crap. Okay, I do know a couple people that do that. Awesome. Hey, who do you know that likes to cook? Who do you know that likes to entertain? You're going to want, by the way, if you give them 5 to 7 thought joggers and they only think of one person from each one of those, guess what? That's 5 to 7 new people on top of everybody else they already put down. That's how you start getting to those 20, 30, 40 people that Orlando gets to. All right. Now, you're not going to be able to do the hand back in your virtual but you still want to use the phrase at the very end. Once they're like, I don't know anyone else. I can't think of anyone else, Joe. I'm tapped out. I completely understand, Mrs. Jones. You always want to, I completely understand, Mrs. Jones. Always hit them with the understand where they're coming from. Now, Mrs. Jones, who do you know that won't buy anything that doesn't hit a hardworking young person, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to be different for you, but it's who do you know that won't buy anything that doesn't hate a hardworking college student, that doesn't hate a hardworking young man, who doesn't hate a hardworking millennial, right? Like whatever you want to put in for yourself, that's what you're going to finish there with. Okay. But you want to have 5 to 7 thought joggers at a minimum. And then obviously the line you can really use is the virtual. We're doing a virtual demo. Some of them people you're going to be seeing here, but I'm also going to ask, by the way, Mrs. Jones, I can do virtual appointments for anybody in the country, especially right now where no one's going anywhere. Who do you know that lives in a different state? I want to do an appointment with every one person in every state. I think that'd be pretty cool. That was okay. So there. And then at the end, I'm going to still send them the text message. Okay. It's a little harder to get them to call right then and there on a virtual, but I can definitely get them all to send the text message on a virtual. Okay. So I finish with, by the way, Joe, it's a lot easier to talk to people when they know I'm calling. If I sent you a text message to give a heads up that I'll be calling, could you do that and send that to all the people you recommended me here? Oh my gosh, that'd be, yeah, I'd love to. Awesome. I'll send that to you once we finish up here. Now, by the way, if you click one more page forward, for anybody else that you could think of that might be a good fit for helping me out, listening, or might want some of this product, you can actually just submit them through this page. So by the way, what I'm talking about is the very last page of the virtual, right? I don't go to that page until I have finished my rec approach. Okay, I do not go to that last page until I've already done my rec approach, because I don't want to give them an opt out to say, hey, you know what, Joe, I'm just going to email you your stuff. I want to get as many as I can over the phone and then say, hey, by the way, for anybody else you think of or that tell you that you think would be great for this, you can just actually send them through email to me using the last page on this presentation here. So go ahead and click one more and you just click that and it'll actually email them to me if you have anyone else that comes to mind. Okay. And then the last thing, you thank them so much again for the purchase, for helping you out, for recommending people, everything. Like it's a whole full on crazy appreciation to finish it up. Okay. All right. I think that finishes the basics right here. So I'm going to open it up to questions. How do you transition them to, great question. So thanks, Cyan. I almost forgot. So now that we've gone through all the people, I mean, it's simple. It's like, by the way, okay. So that's everybody you can think of Cyan. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, by the way. All right, so let's go back through and go numbers. All right, so you said Brody. What's Brody's number? Okay, great. By the way, in case I can't get a hold of Brody, what's his wife's name? Awesome, and what's her number? Oh, great, thank you so much. Okay, all right, so the next person you had, by the way, they don't remember who they told you. They didn't write these people down. So I'm going to ask for each one of those people's numbers. All right, so next was Cheyenne. Awesome, okay, great. A3, yada, yada. And then, by the way, so next time they say Joe, I'm like, awesome. What's Joe's number? By the way, in case I can't get a hold of Joe, what's his wife's name? Awesome, and do you have her number too? All right, I'm always making sure I have the wife's name and number. I never ever leave without asking for the wife. I don't do demos for men by themselves. I don't even talk to the husband on the phone. Okay, And the reason I say that is, ladies and gentlemen, I cook a lot. I love to cook. Okay? I will never buy anything for my kitchen or my house without my wife's approval. That is every man for eternity. Okay? You've all heard the saying, happy wife, happy life. It's 100% accurate. My wife decorates the house. Why? Because I don't care. That's not something I care about. She loves it. People come over, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. I'm like, yeah, my wife did it. I didn't do anything. I just pay the bills. Right? But more specifically is I want to make sure that the mom has the schedule. The mom knows what the kids are doing. The mom even knows the husband's schedule. She tells them where to be, when to be there, and how to be dressed. Some of you have talked to husbands and they constantly push you off or tell you to call back later, or bigger than anything, they're not interested. They don't cook. How do they know if their wife's interested or not? They're assuming, because their assumption is my wife has knives, she doesn't need any more. We already have pots and pans in the kitchen. We don't need any more. Okay? But if it's for him and he wants a new golf club, he'll go out and spend another $200 on a driver that he only uses a couple times a year. So always get the wife. And then I always want to ask questions. Where do they live? What's the best time to get in touch with them? Any tips or things I can talk to create a comfortable relationship right off the bat? Right? I'm like, what sports do you know, are there kids in any sports or activities? How many kids do they have? Do you happen to know what they do for work? The reason I asked that question, by the way, do you happen to know what they do for work? I want to be an engineer and I want to meet more people in that field. And they're like, by the way, big tip, they won't put some of those people down. And they're like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about John. John, he's an engineer. He works at Shell. His wife would actually love this. So then I'm going to ask for specific people in specific majors. You want to be a doctor or in the medical field. Hey, who do you know that's a nurse? Who do you know that's a doctor? Who do you know that's a personalist? Or who do you know that's in PT, physical therapy? All right. So qualifying your recommendations, you still want to do that on a virtual as well. Good
So you wouldn't do the virtual recommendation form at the end of the presentation?
Yeah, so I'm going to do it, but it's the very last thing that I do.
Okay.
Okay. So meaning I'm on, I think, what is the last page is wellness mats, I believe, as far as products that we show. And then after wellness mats goes into the page where they click to go to the email, the Rex, right? So I end on the wellness mats. That's where I start doing my recommendations approach. Okay. And then once I finish all of it, I've gotten qualified their people, all that kind of stuff. Then I'm going to say, by the way, for anybody else that you think of after we finish this, you can go ahead and just email them through this link here. Cool. Great question, Brody. Cheyenne, I'll tell you, it is my pleasure. I hope you got some good tips from today.
I have amazing tips.
Good.
Same here.
Any questions? Awesome. Awesome. Any final questions here?
No, sir.
I have one.
Yeah, what's up?
When you were talking about get Rex before closing, how exactly would you go about implementing that?
So you close, meaning you already have figured out what they like.
Okay.
They already said, yes, Christina, I want the homemaker set. Okay. So they've already told me what they're buying. I don't do, so what I mean by that is they've told me yes on whatever they're purchasing. So before I put it into Vector Connect, I'm going to do recommendations. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So I've already confirmed, they've already told me I'm buying a signature set, I'm buying these 5 pieces, whatever they're wanting to get today, they've already told me that. Okay. And they're ready to pay for it. Now, before we transition to taking out, before I write that up, there is one more very important part. Here's where you can really help me out. And you go right into it.
Would you then would it show them any of the gifts and accessories? Or
You
how-
would have already shown them all of that.
okay, so you go through the whole presentation.
Whole presentation.
Before
So what
you
I
get-
love, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was like, before you get the credit card number, you just say add Rex and then you get the credit card. Okay.
Yeah, by the way, one of my favorite parts about a virtual is that you literally have to go through everything in the book before you can get to recommendations. So our sales, by the way, the average order is going to go up because you're going to show more options. You're going to be forced to show all the gifts and accessories, the wellness mats, the coffee, all of that. When you do a virtual right, your average order is actually going to increase because your customers see everything that we have to offer. And then once we get the ice cream scoops on there, the vegetable peelers, the hunting fishing knives, their extra K bars, then we quote all the prices, all that stuff. Then we finish with recommendations after they've said yes. Good question. Anything else? Anything? Bueller?